What is up, all my beautiful Dolly friends? I'm Dr. Doll and welcome to another video. Well, I have good news and I have bad news. Good news is I didn't burn the house down. Yay! Bad news is the Benzole Peroxide didn't really work on our generation doll. I tried a couple treatments and it was interesting. So it really didn't lighten the stain, but it did lighten the vinyl around the stain, which I have never had that happen with an American Girl doll. So again, the plastics are different. They're made out of different materials. I couldn't tell you what. But and I didn't have luck with any of the other stains either. So we are going to blend with paint. So that's the bad news. Now, the oven baking method, definitely don't do it. It not only is it dumb, but like there's so many things that can go wrong. But it's also just not very effective for activating the benzoyl peroxide. You really need a method that has a continuous heat source. And so when you're turning the oven off, you're really only having that heat source for a short time before the oven cools down. So it's not very effective. Really the best, I've tried multiple different methods, and the best method for using the benzoyl peroxide is if it's a hot day outside, then just stick the doll on the dashboard of your car and let her sunbathe. That has been by far the best way to activate the benzoyl peroxide for me. You can also just leave them outside on the porch. The sun is a very good heat source. Now, because it's fall going into winter here in the Midwest, I can't really do that. I can't use that method. So really the best way is to buy a heat lamp. They're $20 on Amazon, which I did purchase one last night, so no more oven baking dolls for me. And that way you can have a continual, even heat source hitting your doll. I've had people tell me to use heat pads. I have tried that method with no luck in the past, so maybe they know a secret that I don't. But really some kind of light heat source, either the sun or a heat lamp, seems to be the best for me. So definitely do that. Don't use an oven. So now that we know that that's not really working, we're going to try and paint and blend some of these spots out, and I'll show you just kind of what I do. A lot of it is just feeling your way through it, and I'll kind of show you what I mean by that. Okay, so here's our lovely girl. As you can see, she did not melt. She did not burn. She's fine. She had a little tan, and that's about it. So I've never done this on an Our Generation doll before. This is the color that works really well for American Girl dolls. It's kind of a buildup of paint there. So I'm going to start with this and see if it's running low. See if it's close. Already it looks like it is not close. This skin looks very orangey to me. So let's see. I'm going to take a little brush fresh, and just going to do a tester on the bottom of her foot. Yeah, and this is not a good, it's too beige. It's not orange enough, which is funny because this color is too orange for the AG dolls. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of orange to the pot, and I'm going to grab a toothpick. Okay, so we're just going to take some of this orange. Oh, you can't even see what I'm doing, can you? Scooch, scooch, scooch.
It's cooking. It's cooking.
It's cooking, yeah. Alright, and already this is starting to look more the right color. just by adding some orange to it. I think it needs
What
even more
happened
orange.
to sticker? What happened to sticker?
What happened to the sticker? I don't know, baby cakes. I wonder if it's too dark, but we're gonna try it.
It's too dark.
Let's try a little bit of this. Again, on the bottom of the foot. And just a light little
Orange.
application and see. It also dries slightly different color than it looks when it's wet. And in my experience, it dries lighter. So that's why I'm not adding any white to it just yet, because a lot of times it will look darker when it's wet. This is a close match. I'm just gonna let it dry a tiny bit more. Okay, it is a tiny bit dark. It's not bad though. Tiny bit dark. I don't know if I want to put straight white into it. Do I have this khaki color I could, because white is very, the white I have is very opaque, and I just think even if I put a tiny amount, it's going to lighten it too much. So I'm going to start with this khaki color and see if that kind of helps us get to where we need to be.
What happened?
Did you drop something? Okay.
Yes.
You want to go get it? Okay. And like I said, this is a lot of just trial and error, because every doll has different skin tone. Even dolls that are like supposed to have the same skin tone, they don't always. Yeah. They don't always have the same. You can't always use the same formula for paint, because depending on the year it was manufactured, there might be slight, subtle differences in the coloring. You'll definitely see that with AG dolls, but you'll see it also with our generation dolls. Okay, this is really close, so I'm going to just try and take a tiny bit, and we'll start with this really big spot on her arm. And I'm going to start with a very thin layer.
It's a tire.
And this method takes time. You can't be in a rush. You just have to be patient.
It's a tire.
And then I'm just sort of patting it, blending it out with my finger, almost like you would concealer. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, it's a tiny bit dark. Still a tiny bit dark. Alright, we're going to add a little bit more of that khaki color. A little bit more of that khaki color. And you just have to be patient. Just have to be patient. Because it takes time, it takes effort.
It broke apart.
What did you break?
What happened?
What happened? Okay, let's try this. I lightened it just a little bit more with the khaki color.
Khaki color.
And if this was a very, right now I'm not using any color corrector on it, because these are not what I would consider to be like very large stains. If you have a very large stain, then you might have to do some color correction. So if there's like a big red stain, then you would have to tint it green before you try and conceal it. Okay, I'm gonna keep working on it and I'll check back with you. Okay, so I'm finally starting to make some progress. So all I've done, I wiped off what I originally had done.
Oh no!
And I'm just going to pack it in right over that spot and let this dry. So right now we're just trying to cover it. And then once this layer dries, then we will work on blending it. So first we just got to kind of cover it. And I've done that down here with the tiny little ones too. You're just sort of putting spots of the paint on. And then we'll go back once it dries and blend it out. The worst one is on her arm, definitely. These are all very tiny. And my son is very cranky because he wants macaroni, but he doesn't understand the macaroni takes time to cook. Isn't that right, bud? Oh, you want your jacket off? Okay. Okay, I have both my boys happily eating macaroni right now. And let's take a look at this. Okay, so you can see that I've covered it, but it's standing out. It's not blended properly. So now I take my little blending brush, which is an actual makeup brush. And this is where the finesse sort of comes in. Is you just want to get a tiny bit on your brush and make very large sweeping strokes, because you're just sort of blending out those patches so that it looks like it's more natural. You're basically just sort of fooling the eye. And it does take time. Use large sweeping strokes, and then I like to sort of buff those out with a circular motion. And
Books?
you basically just keep going until it looks seamless. So if you have to go over the whole leg, even if it's just a very, very light sort of brushing, then that's what you do. And because it's so thin, you don't need to worry about sealing it. It's just going to absorb into the vinyl. Which over time is great because it will just sort of naturally, the whole leg will naturally become this color over time.
This is macaroni. Eat macaroni.
Yeah, eat your macaroni, buddy. Here we go. Bye-bye. Good job. What is that? So it just takes time, it takes patience, and you just have to really trust your eye, because if something looks unnatural to you, it's probably going to look unnatural to someone else. So, and then I like to do it a little bit thicker in the spot areas, and then you just sort of thin it out outwards. And as the vinyl breathes and expands and contracts, it will absorb this pigment, and it will eventually look really good. You don't have to worry about
macaroni down there. One macaroni down there.
Yeah, one macaroni down there, huh? Yeah. And then I like to put a little bit on the feet just so that they don't look like a different color. I mean, just very light dusting. We're talking super thin amount of paint here. And then just sort of look at the back of the leg. Touch it up. So I'm going to do this to all 4 of her limbs, and then I'll get back with you. Okay, so I think I'm about done, and you can see on her arm here. So it's not perfect. It doesn't completely get rid of that mark, but it blends it out and just makes it less noticeable. And then her legs, I didn't do as good a job on. You can still see a couple of spots. You can see like there. But those spots are so tiny that I think just as long as I put them in a disclaimer on the listing, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Tiny spots like that, especially on the legs, people are pretty understanding about. This one is so big though, and it was right there on the arm, that I wanted to try and cover that up as much as possible. So I think that's it for this section. In the last section, I will try and finish these girlies up, and we'll do all the fun stuff. That's where we've done all the hard work so far, and then what comes next is all the fun stuff, all the custom. I've heard that for this method, pastels actually work better than paint. If you work with pastels, you can really rub it into the vinyl, and it doesn't leave any streaks or marks. So I'm actually gonna, boys, I'm trying to film. Almost done. So I'm gonna try and get pastels and try that using those instead soon, because I've heard that those work a lot better. But you can use paint, and that's just kind of how I do it. So it's not perfect, but it's definitely better than it was. So we'll see you in the next video. I can't even get. Bye, guys.